you know what? Life is too short to be spending it indoors reading books. That's not actually the message. Hello, it is so good to see you today. Thank you, yes. No, it's so good to see you too. A couple things before we get started. I accidentally dropped my phone, and I don't have a phone case because I live life on the edge. My phone also lived its life on the edge of a very tall counter and fell onto a cement floor. It fell face first, like it was the buttered side of toast, like it was the forepaws on a cat, and it cracked the part of the camera, which is how we're communicating right now. So the way that I see you, the way that you see me is a little distorted. There's like a version of me here. There's like this here. And then there's like also everything else. It's like if you've ever done, you know what I mean? If you've ever done the one you put on your tongue, it kind of looks like that a little bit, which I love. So I'm like, do I really need to buy a new phone? Because this is just so much more me. This is like so artsy and just, if it really bothers you, let me know. And maybe I'll invest in a camera, maybe. And in the meantime, enjoy a somewhat psychedelic experience and listen to a girl on the internet talk about books. Thanks for hanging in there for that intro. Last year, I wanted to make a chart. I am gonna do that, 1 second. Okay, I made very important graphics. This is a list of how many books I read in the year 2016. It says 1, that's a question mark, or 2. I really don't remember. In the year 2016, I think I read Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five. The year 2017, this is a list of the amount of books I read in 2017. 1, I read Your Fathers, Where Are They? And The Prophets, Do They Live Forever? I read that book within 24 hours, which was pretty impressive for me because I wasn't really reading a lot, as you can see by these charts. The year 2018, I read a few books, but here's the thing about the year 2018. I was teaching high schoolers at the time, but it doesn't really count because I was like teaching them. Like I wasn't really reading them. So we're going to say that doesn't count. The year 2019, this is how many books I read that year. 0, goose egg. The year 2020, how many books did I read? 1. I read 1 book in 2020. It was The Bell Jar. It was The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. 2021, how many books did I read? 12. I read 12. What happened? What happened is I read Sylvia Plath and I was like, oh, reading is cool. Let me read more next year. Okay, so this is 2021. 2021, 12 books. Great. Good for me. Very big number from the last 5 years. This is how many books I read in the year 2022, the most recent year we had. Whoa with the visuals. In 2022, I read this many books, 4. And we're gonna talk about those books today. And what happened here? What happened? We had 12 books last year and we had 4 this year. What happened? I don't know. But you know what? That's what I want to say in this video today. Whatever. I read 4 books, which isn't 12. It's not a book a month, which is just a personal goal I have. But I was still reading. I'm just going to talk about the books I read last year. And originally I was like, this video can be books I read last year and how I plan on reading more next year. But yeah, I don't care. Like, reading should be fun. You shouldn't force yourself. I also don't like using the word should. Reading is fun. Reading can be fun. And I like to read when it is fun and when I don't feel forced to do something. So I'm still reading, but I just maybe don't have to read as much, or maybe I'll read more. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to do whatever I feel. And I hope that this video can inspire you to do the same. So the books I read last year, I read this one book, which I don't have on me because I let a friend borrow it because I am a book angel. If you haven't noticed, if I like a book, I usually give it to somebody else. So sue me. The first book I read last year in 2022, if you can recall this time, was it was called When You're Ready, This Is How You Heal. By who? I don't know. I'll put it on the screen. And honestly, I was pretty heartbroken. I live in a constant state of heartbreak, let's be honest, but I was a little heartbroken in January of 2022. Somebody broke my heart. Somebody you might even know. And guess what? I read that book and then I unfollowed the person on social media. So the book works. The book works. This is some drama. This is drama. That was a book I read, but here's the thing about the books I read last year. You'll notice a theme in all these books, all 4 of them. That book, the When You're Ready, This Is How You Heal, that was like not a book. Like, it was like if somebody cut out a bunch of inspirational Pinterest quotes and put it in a book. That's what I read. But it was like 200 pages or something. It was like a little over 100 pages. So we're going to say it was like some hardcore literature, but it really wasn't. It was a pretty easy read, but whatever. That still counts as a book. So there's that. That's the first book I read in 2022. The second book I read in 2022 was Love is a Dog from Hell by Charles Bukowski. If you know who Charles Bukowski is, let me just tell you from my perspective. Charles Bukowski is a poet. These are all poems. He's drunk. He's gross. Quite possibly a sexaholic. A sex addict. Perhaps misogynist, just, awful. He would be canceled, and like I'm pretty sure a lot of people have canceled Charles Bukowski. Me, on the other hand, I loved reading Charles Bukowski. What can I say? Reading Charles Bukowski low-key changed my life. I talked to somebody about this, about how I haven't read a lot in last year, and that I read poetry, so it like technically doesn't count. And they were like, wow, you don't think poetry counts as reading? Like, you have missed the point of poetry. Poetry is so deep and so heavy, like it almost takes more to process poetry than it does a book. And I was like, wow, never doubt myself. I am so amazing. I am awesome. I am so deep. I am so wise. I am so poetic. You're right. And then they were like, that's not what I said. And I said, yes, it was. What was the third book I read in 2022, you ask? Can you believe it? Another Charles Bukowski poetry book. I was hooked. Again, just an old man, drunk, writing poetry about having sex with girls and blah, blah, blah. Looking at underage girls. Some of it's gross. I can acknowledge that some of it is very gross, but you know what I like about Bukowski? He is so human, and there's just so many lines that he writes that I'm just like, and that's why I would keep coming back for more. Out of the 2, I did like this one better. This one was still also good, but maybe it was even because I just read this one first, but I did like this one better. Oh, I will tell you more about how Bukowski changed my life in 1 second. Do the visuals bother you? Let me know. I think they're pretty cool. I didn't make my bed, so don't judge if you can see that part of myself. 1 second. Okay, so how did reading Bukowski change my life, you ask? Ta-da! I bought myself a typewriter. This is my typewriter, very beautiful, I know, but reading Bukowski made me want to get a typewriter, and it's something I've always wanted because writing on a screen hurts my eyes, whether it's a laptop or my phone, and then my handwriting, I cannot read because I have really terrible handwriting, especially when I journal or just get to writing really fast. I cannot read my handwriting, and it also hurts my wrist to write with my hand. So the typewriter is the perfect medium of typing meets antiquated, say, journaling. It's just a good fit for me, okay? There's no screen to hurt my eyes, and my wrist doesn't hurt when I type. So I highly recommend getting a typewriter. That's just another example of how books can be so influential in our lives because he inspired me to get a typewriter and to spend some of my nights typing. And he'll write about that. He'll write about just the fact that he's at his typewriter and that he loves his typewriter so much. So I just wanted to experience that. And yeah, the time I have with my typewriter is so special to me. I don't do it every single night, but when I do just type some things out, it feels so good. And something I really like about typing on a typewriter is that you can't erase things. So you just have to keep going. And that's like one of the best things you could do as a writer is just keep going and to not edit yourself so much. That's what I mean when I say that it's okay that I only read 4 books this year instead of 12, because I found a new hobby that I love and a way to express myself through typing. And I didn't read a million books this year, but I can't tell you how many poems I wrote for myself, which is awesome. And so who's to say that maybe if I read 12 books last year, I would have met my reading goal, but maybe I wouldn't have discovered this love I have for using a typewriter and just writing. So that's why I say it's okay if you aren't doing as much as you think, because maybe you're finding other things you like to do, and that's okay too. And maybe I can write my own book one day, my own poetry book. The final book I read in the year 2022, if you can remember such a time, I don't like how shiny this is, but it's Walk Through Walls by Marina Abramovich. She is a performance artist, just one of my personal heroes. I love her. I read this book in December of 2022, so right before the year was ending. I got COVID. I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm gonna just read a book, I guess. So that's what I did. What a treat to read a memoir from one of your favorite people. I loved reading this book. This book taught me, 1, to slow down, to do things more slow. That way you can be more present in those moments. And her reasoning behind that is not just like, oh, meditation, be slow, be present. But she's like, your art is just so much better when you're in the moment. Like, that is what art is. So I like that justification of being present and just being slower, is so it can help you be human and therefore be an artist. And another thing I learned from this book was the idea of pain. She feels pain in her performances, but she like pushes through right before that second of like, I can't do this anymore, I have to stop. She'll like push through, and then she says that she reaches a new level of consciousness, which I just love. And this book was like a book. Like, it wasn't no Pinterest quote cutting book or like poetry, which, as we decided, is very deep and profound and definitely counts as a book. But this was like what felt like maybe one of like really like a book. It just felt like I read a book. So that was it. Those are the 4 books I read in the year 2022. Thank you for putting up with these tracers, these psychedelic visuals. And if, I'm going to say it again, if you didn't meet your reading goal last year, who cares? Not who cares. Your feelings are valid if you feel upset about that. But what can you do? Can we go back in time and read more? No. Can we choose to read more in the future? Yes. Can we choose to read today? Yes. If we don't read any books this year, what can you do? What can you do? Tell me your thoughts about reading goals. Do you hold yourself to a pretty high tier? Do you get frustrated when you don't reach your goals? Do you not care if you don't reach your goals? I want to know about it. You can tell me what books you're excited to read this year, what books you really liked last year. Let me know. Thank you for watching, and thank you me for filming this today, and thank you future me for editing. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Okay, I love you all. Hit the subscribe, hit the like. You want to talk to me? You want to hear from me? Leave a comment down below. I will reply. Okay, I love you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.